Their eyes were watching God. By Zora Neale Hurston. In this video, we will discuss a summary of Chapter 8, followed by an analysis of the chapter. Chapter 8 Summary. After the confrontation, Jody moves into another room downstairs in the house. Janie doesn't want to apologize to Jody for belittling him once, since he's been belittling her for the duration of their whole, long marriage. Still, Janie notices that Jody really is getting old. His health continues to deteriorate. Unbeknownst to Janie, Jody wants to regain his manliness in her eyes and, in desperation, consults with charlatan herbalists, trying to find a cure. Janie also discovers that Jody isn't eating her cooking anymore. He's having an old lady, who's a far worse cook than Janie, make his meals. This really hurts Janie. Janie, who at some level still cares for Jody, sobs out her sorrows to her best friend, Phoebe. This is the first mention of Phoebe within the frame of Janie's narration. She learns from Phoebe that there is a rumor around town that Janie is trying to poison Jody for revenge. Phoebe advises her to just bear it. There's nothing Janie can do to take back what she said about his manhood in the store, and it's far too late to get a divorce. Jody takes to his bed and gets tons of visitors who pay no attention to Janie. Furthermore, Jody's newfound friends report to the sick mayor about his wife and how incompetent she is in the store. Nevertheless, Janie sends for a real doctor from Orlando. The doctor examines Jody and determines that his kidneys have stopped working and that he will soon die. Janie begins to pity Jody and wants to see him one last time. Jody refuses, but Janie decides that it will soon be too late, so she enters his room. He is cold and distant, and their conversation quickly deteriorates into an argument. She tells him that he never gave her the chance to show him her love. He says that she never appreciated all that he did for her. She responds that he never let her express her emotions. She tells him that he's dying, which terrifies him. He breaks down, releases one long, anguished sob, and begs Janie not to tell him such things. He doesn't want to confront the truth. Janie points out that if he'd listened to her before and had seen a doctor, he wouldn't be dying right now. He never listened to her and never knew her during their 20 years of marriage. She berates him, accusing him of tyranny and egotism. Enraged, Jody wishes death upon her. Janie confesses that he's not the man she ran away with. All she wanted was to make a home for him, but he was too ambitious and demanded her submission. She adds that he was always trying to change her and was never satisfied with who she really was. Jody pleads with Janie to stop, but she continues. She sees that he is struggling with death and is filled with pity. Janie says Jody never let her show him her love because he was too wrapped up in listening to his own big voice. Jody dies trying to rebuke her. Janie thinks about all the time that has passed since she met him. She looks in a mirror and sees that she has aged but is still beautiful. She rips off her head rag, freeing her imprisoned hair, but then realizes that she must appear to be mourning. She ties it back up, assumes a mask of sadness, and yells out the window that Jody has died. Chapter 8 Analysis. Jody's decision to change rooms shows that he is now relying on new mechanisms to insult Janie. He can no longer rely on language to silence Janie, as she has begun to found a voice for herself, as shown through her sardonic series of insults to Jody at the end of Chapter 7. Janie's continued sense of allegiance to Jody speaks to the complexity of her emotions at this stage, as she feels simultaneous sadness about Jody's deterioration and accompanying deterioration of their marriage, though at the same time remains angry about the years of silence she endured under Jody's harsh control. Janie is able to find full self-expression now with firm knowledge of Jody's oncoming death. Having recognized her capacity for self-defense and expression, Janie uses language to push Jody fully toward his demise. Despite her initial feelings of ambivalence regarding Jody's death, Janie ultimately recognizes his deterioration as a sign of her own freedom. Janie is able to express her belief that her husband is and has been a tyrant at the same moment that she informs him of his death. It is precisely through each and every episode of her relationship with Jody that Janie is able to come to this moment of deep self-expression. Janie's removal of the scarf from her head marks a symbolic removal of Jody's control from her life. In particular, she is now able to regain her sense of self as a beautiful and desirable woman, something that Jody deliberately tried to destroy, especially in the final days preceding his death. Yet, Janie's eventual decision to keep the scarf on in order to avoid judgment from the townspeople shows that she is still subject to the judgments of the townspeople. She is still not completely free to express herself. This chapter, along with the previous chapter 7, focus on the disintegration of Jody and Janie's marriage, culminating in Jody's death. Janie's interest in the marriage has already waned by this point. She loses hope when it becomes clear that her relationship to Jody will not help her realize her dreams. Jody, on the other hand, loses everything, including the will to live, as soon as he loses the ability to exert control. Despite their obvious differences, Jody and Janie's situations are, in a way, similar. Both realize that they have constructed lives that have not delivered the fulfillment that they expected. But Janie is able to survive her disillusionment and, by the end of chapter 8, has begun to once again head in the direction of her dreams. Jody, however, doesn't survive. In part, his destruction results from Janie's reassertion of herself. In chapter 6 we see how intimately Jody's control is related to language. He uses language to belittle Janie while at the same time forcing her to remain silent. The one-sidedness of this dynamic is the only real tool left with which Jody can preserve the imbalance of power in his relationship with Janie. Jody tries to use his control of discourse to compensate for his physical deterioration and ultimate inability to control the world. His insults attempt to reshape the world around him by incorrectly describing Janie's appearance while ignoring his own. Janie's two outbursts further underscore the importance of language. When she speaks, she asserts herself and her own power. This assertion, of course, deeply troubles Jody. Janie's sharp retort in chapter 7 about Jody's feebleness completely shatters Jody's misconceptions about the extent of his power. He is robbed of his illusion of irresistible maleness. Janie has reversed their situations. Earlier, Jody prevents her from speaking and asserting her identity. Now, he himself is left without a voice. Joe Starks didn't know the words for all this, but he knew the feeling. Stung by words, shown the limitations of his power, and robbed of his ability to speak, Jody breaks down. He resorts to physical violence, a display of beastliness, because his lofty aura has dissipated completely. Jody's disintegration is completed in chapter 8, and, once again, he is undone by the power of Janie's speech. She finally lashes out at him in full, expressing her feelings and criticizing his faults. Janie compromises the source of Jody's power, his assumed superiority, rendering him impotent and weak. It is no coincidence that he dies as Janie finishes her scolding speech. Janie's first act of liberation after Jody's death is to release her hair from the shackles of the head rag. She reasserts her identity as beautiful and arousing woman, an identity that Jody had denied her by trying to suppress her sex appeal and making comments about her aging appearance. Her braid again functions as a phallic symbol, representing her potency and strength. Jody had kept Janie's power tied up, but now she is free and can release it. But Janie's act of tying her hair back up demonstrates that she understands that the community will judge her if she appears so carefree. Unlike Jody, who exerts his authority without regard for others, Janie wields her power with restraint. If this video helped you, be sure to give it a like, comment, and subscribe for more helpful content.